I went to the zoo today.
Oh, again?
Okay, yeah.
What did you see at the zoo?
He's mad because I said that nobody wants to hear about his zoo. He's like, oh, at the zoo again? I saw a bear.
What's he doing?
Did I show you the picture of the bear I took with the little
I can
girl?
go to Cap Hill and see a bear anytime I want.
Nice.
Tyler.
Talking about
very insensitive.
It's not. It's
Pride
Pride
Week.
Month.
It's Pride Month.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be a lot of bears on Capitol Hill.
There usually are. Let's
There
be
are.
honest.
There's a whole bar.
A bear
for them to
bar?
hang out. Yeah. The Cuff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I used to go to the Cup with
I've
my
been
dad
there.
all the time.
Yeah.
Your dad's a bear.
I mean, not by choice.
I mean, do any of us get to choose?
Yeah, what kind of homosexual man we are? No.
Yeah, I didn't.
None of us do.
I'm a bit of a twink.
I like to think so.
You? Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I'm a straight dude.
I'd like to
The
think-
worst kind of gay guy.
yeah. The worst
this
kind of
picture.
gay guy.
You know what? You're listening to History Boys.
It's the History Boys podcast, guys.
Yeah. Guys, come on. It's the History Come on. I'm Christopher Whedon. Next to me is...
Tyler Armentrout.
And...
Jerry Nash.
There we go. I didn't call you guys Ted Cruz and
Yeah, you didn't.
James
you didn't,
Cromwell this
yeah,
time.
you didn't do all these jokey names for us this time.
I will, again.
Yeah, you'll do it
See-
sporadically.
Yeah.
Once again, we got Zach on audio.
Zach's
We got
here.
Zach on the line.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Yeah, we got a
Yeah.
regular Zach attack.
He's on the line.
He's
We like to keep him.
he's live from a bunker, 40 stories below sea level.
Yeah.
You'll never
True.
see him ever.
Yeah.
I hate people. That's why I'm down in that bump.
So where did we leave things off last time, Jerry?
Okay, so last time we left you with the nightmare of Huerta being over finally, which was kind of like something that everybody could agree we need to get rid of.
Yeah.
Huerta.
Huerta seems like if you have a government in which you want to overthrow them, and you end up with somebody like Huerta, it's kind of the opposite of what you're going for.
Right, yeah,
Like,
you don't
he's
want
the-
a military
Like
dictatorship.
we kind of got. You know what I want?
That
Free
was worse
elections.
than
You know what
Deeds.
we get? A fucking military dictatorship.
Yeah.
Well, it's I think it's a classic example of you overthrow a government, you have a power vacuum, and you're like, well, I hope whoever fills this vacuum is a benevolent leader who has our best interests in mind, and it never works out that way.
Well, I think
Well, at least it didn't.
the problem with Madero
Huerta.
being so sort of lame duck, I guess.
Well,
Like,
unfortunate.
yeah,
I honestly,
he definitely was a victim of circumstance. He definitely.
Yes.
I don't think. Well, I was gonna say I don't think he didn't deserve. He definitely didn't deserve what he got.
no, but
He wasn't right-
really even a statesman. Really.
He wasn't right for the job, frankly.
He really wasn't.
And
he was more of like an idealist than.
He
than
was just
anything.
kind of the guy.
He was a big picture kind of guy.
That's
an
pretty-
idea man.
That's pretty accurate, actually.
So yeah, all the Caldeos met in Mexico City to hammer out some sort of agreement post Huerta. Like, what are we gonna do? Where do we go from here? And this was actually the first and only time that Pancho Villa and Emiliano Zapata actually met in person. They even took a picture, and it was more of a joke than anything. Like, there's this one famous picture. There's a lot of pictures from this meeting.
They're like, do one serious.
yeah,
Now
yeah.
do one fun.
There was like a yeah.
They got like one
It's
with
like,
rubber chickens.
Let's
and
both
shit.
let's both post it, but remember to tag me.
yeah.
The-
Pancho Villa didn't tag Zapata.
But yeah, it was a picture of them sitting on like the presidential throne, like the
the
chair.
picture's pretty dope. If
It is.
people listening at home,
Wouldn't
look
it be
that up.
funny if
Yeah.
one of us became president? Yeah. And then they both kind of eye each other for a second.
Well, neither of them wanted the job. They did not want to be president.
Well,
Neither of them did.
They just didn't want this motherfucker to be president.
yeah. This gathering was called the Convention of Aguas Calientes.
The hot water.
Yes. Yes, indeed. But Carranza wasn't having any of it because he wasn't invited, because he wasn't a general. Also because this convention categorically stated that he should step down and not be president.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not showing up to that.
Well, he couldn't show up, but he was like, hey, this is not right.
I don't even want to be there. You know?
Yeah.
There's only 2 characters you can cosplay as, and there's only 2 people who can cosplay as those characters, and this guy isn't invited.
Yeah.
What characters can you cosplay as?
Zapata and Pancho Villa.
Are they cosplaying as themselves?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a weird joke.
That was that's why I made him dissect it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, other people could have, but it would have been weird.
Yeah, coming in as
know.
Vegeta.
Yeah, coming in as Vegeta at the Sakura Con where Vegeta's actually there.
Yeah. Oh,
He'd go Super Saiyan about it.
yeah.
Yeah, V and Zapata, I mean, they agreed that they both just did not trust Carranza. You know, they never signed Carranza's plan of Guadalupe, and Villa, I mean, he even openly disobeyed him during the war to oust Huerta, like, several times. So yeah, they never really liked him. They were only allies with him out of convenience, just to get rid of Huerta more than anything. Zapata had a feeling that because Carranza is from a wealthy background, that he had no interest in helping Morelos or instituting any kind of land reform, which we all know the Zapatistas.
I'm gonna say one thing about that. I kind of don't blame him for worrying about that.
Why?
No, if you're just, I don't know, like these rich motherfuckers coming in.
But I mean, this whole revolution, this is kind of what it's about. You know?
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't trust him either.
If you want the revolution to continue, a surefire way is to not do land reform.
Oh, yeah.
We've already learned that several times.
I'm just saying I don't blame him for not trusting him, that's all I'm saying.
I thought...
Oh, no, yeah.
At this point, I would think with all of the political wishy-washy, overthrowy kind of stuff, who's gonna trust anybody?
Yeah, and we're gonna get there because, I mean, think of how many times people have traded sides.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It
And this is
feels
gonna
like
happen
It's
more.
got to be like one of those
like they're
standoffs from the
almost
movies, you know, where everybody's just standing there and they got their guns out and it's like a standoff.
What do they call that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Herman's standoff.
Yeah.
So forced to choose sides, Avrelo Obregón. I'm doing like the white person
Obregón.
thing where I'm like trying to
Obregón.
add spice to something
It's
that
hard to
does
say
not need.
Obregón without
Obregón.
spice.
You got it. I mean, you got to put.
There's a place in between.
I have a hard time saying his first name.
Why don't you just say
Alvaro.
Obregón for
I
Alvaro.
wish we
Alvaro.
had somebody who spoke fluent
Alvaro.
Spanish.
I know, that would
Well,
have been...
we do have Zach on the line.
Yeah, he's in a bunker, though.
Well, he still knows how to pronounce Alvaro Obregón.
Alvaro Obregón is how you would pronounce that.
Obregón chose to side with Carranza because he had signed the Plan of Guadalupe. He was one of Carranza's main generals. So he was like, well, Carranza led the Constitutionalist army that won, so I'm going to stick with him. So he did. And Carranza, with his newly minted regime... And listen, guys, real quick before I continue, I'm not going to go into a lot of depth on some of this stuff because this is going to be our last one. So there's some more nuance to this. If you do want more information on the Mexican Revolution, Mike Duncan's podcast Revolutions finished a 20-episode series on the Mexican Revolution that
20
goes
episodes.
into a lot more depth than we do, and it's fantastic.
It's really weird because everything that you just said is actually the lost verse to the song Summer Lovin' from Greece.
What are you talking about?
He's like, I met this girl last summer, and I'm gonna just blaze through this really quick because there's a lot of information here. We met, and it was really hot, and also,
what you were laughing
and here's
about?
all the documentaries you should watch to be 100% caught up on my summer of
This
meeting
happened
this
in
chick.
Greece?
Yeah, it was
The
all it
movie
was,
Greece?
it was the lost verse to the song.
I
Summer
heard
Lovin'.
him laughing when you said that, and I
That's
You're
what
like, he's
no
got,
idea.
You're like, he's got something good loaded up. And
I
then
had no
was
idea.
that.
And
I
it was
like,
this?
what
What
could-
is he
what is-
laughing at?
Oh, Grease
Oh, Grease.
movie Grease.
The movie Grease.
is what he's talking about.
Yeah.
That I suggest you all listen to.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was the name of that podcast again?
Revolutions.
Revolutions
It's
with-
fantastic with Mike Duncan.
Mike Duncan.
He's my fucking hero. He's no joke. So yeah, he came up with a new constitution that was closer to the original constitution that was meaningless under Porfirio Diaz.
The one before Diaz after they
Yeah,
kicked the French out. Is that
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, it was pretty close to that. They had some reforms in there, but what it was is they weren't serious reforms. They were like setting up a possibility for these reforms to happen. But otherwise, it was almost identical to the original constitution.
Had a
And
little bit
that's
more
what
oomph.
when they got involved, that's what they wanted in the first, kind of the old constitution.
Well,
Was that these
Not
guys?
really. Villa and Zapata kind of wanted something more radical.
I know
and even
they-
Madero sort of did with the Plan of San Luis, although he wasn't really totally serious about the Plan of San Luis. Although Villa and Zapata were way into it.
You had me at the
The Plan of San
yeah.
Luis?
You had me at the Plan of San Luis.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened too.
You had me at hello.
So with Carranza straight up letting old Porfirians back into the country and back to their
That
haciendas,
seems to happen a lot.
the revolution is going to continue now. However, considering that this kind of same old song and dance had kind of been going on for 7 years by this point, Mexico was torn apart. It was in an economic depression. They had massive crop failure. And the people, normal people, just wanted it to be done.
I'd
So
imagine.
it'd be hard for both to keep this going, both sides to keep this going. So Carranza, even though he was now in power, didn't really control all of Mexico. Like Zapata and Villa would control more land and have more troops at their disposal, but Carranza had more lucrative land under his control, like Veracruz. While Carranza, Villa, Zapata, and Obregón were fighting Huerta, the Americans occupied the port of Veracruz, and Carranza had negotiated for them to leave. And so he kind of occupied, like, these really important ports and, like, really lucrative areas, so he had, like, more money. And something else that was very important at Veracruz after the Americans left is that they conveniently left a giant cache of state-of-the-art weaponry.
Weird.
Which was like, at the time...
It was like machine guns.
Yeah, it was like a gun that could shoot more than once before you had to reload it.
It was like machine.
And this time, that yeah,
well,
read
it's
machine guns.
1917. Like these are these are like
Yeah.
these are World War One machine guns
It's like, what the fuck?
that were alien until now.
I just wish I had a time machine. I'd go back and just, like, leave an iPhone.
How? Yeah.
I mean, without any data, I don't know what you're going to do with it. You can't play, Pokemon Go on that.
Well, you download a bunch of porn onto it.
Oh.
You show those people.
Yeah, you show
Like,
them.
I got this porn machine. They're like, I did a thumbs up.
It's
You can't
pretty
see it
cool,
on the
but
camera.
how come everybody's doing incest in 2019?
I still wonder why that is.
Yeah.
I seriously don't understand. any
It's
of that.
it's hard to find. You have to, like, put into the filters not incest.
Yeah. No stepbrothers or stepsisters or that.
Step fucking is the most you could hope for.
Let's just talk about this instead of the Mexican Revolution.
Anyway, yeah.
So World War One was underway, and there was like an ammunition shortage. So on both sides, people, Villa, Zapata, and Carranza had a ammunition shortage.
Right.
And something both sides had to deal with. Carranza opened munitions factories in the north to make bullets, but considering that almost everyone was corrupt, he was essentially making bullets for Pancho Villa. Because he, like, would pay off a guy that worked at the factory
damn it.
Yeah.
and just
God damn
get a
it.
bunch of bullets from him.
Well, I mean, like, this is at a time,
Villa.
too, when, I mean, the whole world is flying through bullets.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
Like America's making bullets for...
They can't, yeah, and they don't really want to sell them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my point. Is like they're melting down in Europe. They're melting down fucking church bells to make bullets.
Well, yeah, and the fact that Mexico doesn't even have a currency right now, and the
Right.
currency they do have is not worth anything.
Their currency exists. It's bullets.
Pretty much, honestly. Bullets were probably worth way more than any
Which, by the
paper
way,
money
a
had.
world where bullets are money is the most badass thing.
That's fucking badass.
Sounds like Mad Max.
Yeah, right? Currency is bullets.
Yeah.
To crush Pancho Villa once and for all, Carranza sent the truly brilliant military tactician Obregón to go and deal with him with the guns of Veracruz.
And that's that big old stockpile.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
with the
The
machine
guns of
and whatnot.
Veracruz, yeah. So most of Pancho Villa's success early on lent itself to his fierce cavalry charges and his genius military advisor, Felipe Ángeles.
Angeles.
I'm just say Ángeles because it's just fucking easier for me to say.
Angeles.
Analist.
Annalise.
Annihilus.
Annihilus.
Yeah.
But Pancho Villa drank his own machismo Kool-Aid and stopped listening to Ángeles. Because Ángeles had this plan. He's like, look, he's going to come at you with way more, like, guns and stuff, and a better supply line than what you have. And what you need to do is you need to move farther north and stretch his supply line longer, and that way it'll be harder for him to sustain an attack against you. But Pancho Villa was like, I ain't running from no goddamn fight.
No, I did this one thing, and I'm a gambling
It's
man.
like the final act of The Last Samurai.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I'm
yeah,
talking-
yeah,
right?
exactly, yeah. Pretty much.
Way more
so,
bandoliers, though.
Obregón, knowing the new modern military techniques, he dug trenches, put up barbed wire, and mounted his new machine guns inside the trenches. And his plan was to hit Villa fast and then retreat back to their own lines to provoke one of Villa's infamous charges. And it worked.
Oh, I bet.
When Villa charged after them, his cavalry charged directly into a hail of machine gun fire. He called a retreat several times, and he tried to just charge them again and again and again, failing over and over again. Just going
Like
back
an
into-
idiot.
Cavalry charges have worked for me so far. I don't see why I need to change now.
That's literally what he thought.
They got to
Like,
run out of bullets at some point.
or just I've been in this situation before. I'll just do the cavalry
Not with
charge.
trenches and machine guns.
Exactly.
On the other
I'm
side.
a brilliant military tactician. I got one move.
Well, and even Obregon sent a message back to Carranza that was like, luckily, Pancho Villa oversaw this attack himself.
Yep.
Because everyone knew that Onelus was, like, the military mind behind Pancho Villa. He even, like, tried, like, a night attack. He's like, oh, how can you shoot what you don't see, right? You know? And Obregon knew that trick and set up a bunch of floodlights.
Ah, damn it. The
And-
trick to shoot what you don't see is to be able to see it.
Yeah.
Also, yeah. So, you know, running low on ammo, men, and morale, Villa and his troops had to retreat, and it was the first time, I mean, there's a couple of battles, but it's the first time that the invincible Division del Norte had their defeat. It's the first time they were defeated. And it was also the first time that Villa's soldiers went without pay, and they started deserting him.
Yeah.
Well, you
Poor
know.
Villa. I'm a fan of Villa, but his old-fashioned ways held him back.
Yeah.
There is
and-
something cool about a cavalry charge, don't get me wrong.
Oh, don't get me
There's
wrong.
something a little less cool about hiding in a fucking trench and shooting people with machine
There's
guns.
something even less cool about being on a cavalry
Right.
charge directly into
I'm just
machine
saying that's
gun
why
fire.
this sort of like outlaw, like badass charge 'em attitude is cool. That's why we like Villa.
It just didn't work.
No, it's
Not
unrealistic.
anymore.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
In this particular case.
Yeah. So Obregon would successfully chase Villa and kind of one by one just massacre his army. The Division del Norte scattered and Pancho Villa went into hiding. A very changed man. Like, gone were the days of Pancho Villa being like this Robin Hood, benevolent kind of outlaw. He was now getting desperate. And when that happens, like, he was straight up robbing people and taking money for his army
Well, this
and
is
food and stuff.
I thought you meant like he was going to be like, I suck your dick for a revolution.
I think this is super interesting. 'Cause, I mean, the whole world kind of sees a change at this point. Like
Oh,
in World War I, like
This is a pivotal
well, the thing
time.
is the way that the entire world, like, I mean, you see it even like in this country that's not involved in World War One. The idea of the badass soldier, like, you know,
Yeah.
before that, it was honorable to charge into battle on a horse. You know,
Which is
it doesn't work
pretty
anymore.
cool.
It is cool.
But yeah, it doesn't work. However, this is something I want to, because we got to talk about it in a very strange twist of history that is mind-boggling to think about. All of this may not have happened. Like, Villa may not have been defeated, and Villa's Division del Norte could have survived. In one of these battles between Obregon and Villa, as Obregon was surveying the battlefield, an explosion happened right next to him, and it tore his arm off. And the blast nearly killed him. And thinking of what Villa would do to him if he was caught, and also knowing that, like, oh shit, I'm bleeding to death, it was too much. So Alvaro Obregon took out his pistol, put it to his head, and pulled the trigger. But nothing happened. You see, the night before, a servant had cleaned his pistol and put it back unloaded, and Obregon had not loaded it yet. So, it saved his life, because they found him, and they even found his arm, and, like, preserved it or some shit. But he lived.
He's like, can you
That's
reattach
fucking
it? They're
crazy.
like, no,
It's
but we can
insane.
put it under glass
Yeah.
so you can look at your missing
Yeah,
arm.
I'm gonna guess they couldn't reattach an arm that easily back in those
Right,
days.
yeah.
I mean,
But
they
I mean,
can reattach
history-
it, it just wouldn't work.
It would have been way different. This
Just
whole
flipping,
thing would have been
flopping.
way different.
That's an insane.
It's an insane turn of events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things if like one little thing went differently would have changed
Yeah.
everything.
If his gun would have been loaded.
Yeah, that's
he
what I
put
mean.
a gun
If
to his head and pulled the trigger.
If
Yeah.
the servant hadn't cleaned the gun, if he
Yeah.
had loaded the gun, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Obregon would go on and you know, he would show off the fact that he was missing an arm too. To
Badass.
be like, look, I am missing an appendage, you know,
Yeah.
for Mexico. You know what I mean? And it was a, very
like,
display.
look.
It's like, clearly, you know.
It's like I'm missing an arm. You think I won't shoot myself in the fucking head? I'll shoot myself in the fucking head. I almost did it once.
It's just
People are constantly having to pull guns out of his hand. He's like, I can do it, man. I'm sick of this shit. I was right-handed.
So, what Pancho Villa didn't know is that with America's looming involvement in World War I, they weren't yet involved in the war, but it was coming. Everybody pretty much knew that it was coming. President Woodrow Wilson decided that the Americans would back Carranza, which sucks. That's just another bad guy that they put
the Americans in this story are just kind of this evil empire that's influencing all these events. I mean, they're kind of like that in most things.
Yeah, but especially here.
It's weird when you're inside of it.
And before that, it was the English. So us white people.
Well, and the Spanish and the French.
Germans, to a degree.
The Portuguese and certain other places. But we're not going to get into that. But as far as they know, as far as the Americans knew, and they kind of still liked old Don Porfirio, they thought Carranza just beat the bad guy Huerta. And then he was elected. And that was that. So, done and done. Pancho Villa didn't know this until after his defeat, when he asked himself, where did all these guns and additional soldiers come from? The guns of Veracruz were American guns, and Villa had gone out of his way to maintain a good relationship with the Americans, and this new turn of events infuriated him. He is then quoted saying, "From this moment on, I promise to kill every gringo I get my hands on and destroy all American property."
I don't really blame him.
I don't blame him.
Not one fucking bit.
But I mean, he had a volatile
vendetta.
temper for sure. And yeah, his infamous death to gringos mission began. And this is like why Americans know about Pancho Villa, is this part, is what's coming next. Like, he's been a hero of the revolution. He's been in movies. Mm-hmm. But people don't remember him for that. They remember what is coming next.
So before we go on, I just want to ask real quick. Homeboy losing his arm, is that why there's that song Pancho and Lefty?
That is a great question, because it was his right arm.
I mean,
that is a great question.
Wondering.
Can somebody look that up real quick?
Google it right now. So here it says, the song tells the story of a Mexican bandit named Pancho with a more enigmatic character, Lefty. The song tells of Pancho's death and implies that he was betrayed by his associate Lefty, who was paid off by Mexican federales.
Shit, it is about Obregon. Holy shit.
Yeah,
good job, Zach Meck, calling it.
Yes.
So Pancho Villa, without an army, without money, and without much of his earlier popular support because of the way he now treated people, he hatched a scheme.
Good old-fashioned scheme.
And it was a bonkers scheme. It was crazy. He would invade America.
Cool.
I mean, who's gonna stop him?
Well, and although he only had somewhere in the neighborhood of a couple hundred men, the sources are a little foggy on how many he had with him. His plan was to lead a raid on the border town of Columbus, New Mexico.
I thought you were gonna say Ohio.
Honestly, yeah, most people might, but no. Columbus, New Mexico. It was a very small town. I'm not even sure if it exists anymore. Although, if it does, I suppose if you're listening in Columbus, New Mexico, drop us a line. Say that you're alive.
I'm not going to Google that one.
Yeah, we're not going to Google it.
I'm using my phone to look at the outline. I'm not.
Yeah. Now, this didn't have any tactical purpose or tactical point, but Villa did have a plan. This attack was designed to provoke the Americans into invading Mexico. This would reflect badly on Carranza if he didn't stand up to the Americans and tell them to leave, but it would also reflect badly on Carranza if he did stand up to them, because then he wouldn't have any more American support. So it did have strategic value in the fight against Carranza.
So it's win-win, assuming they actually do invade?
Yes. On March 9th, 1916, Pancho Villa led his small group of loyal soldiers at night to the small town of Columbus.
He's gonna fuck this town up so bad.
Dude, there was supposed to be a garrison of army troops that numbered around 50 in the city, which he could easily take with I mean, it's about 100 guys is what he has.
And they don't see him coming, and yeah.
Right, yeah. Turns out, though, there were more like 350. And another thing that he didn't have going for him is that they had some bad intel of what was going on. So during their loud and fast night raid, they thought that like this horse stable was an army bunkhouse and totally lit it up. But they just shot like 100 horses.
Aww.
Because it was just a horse stable.
Not the livestock.
Yeah. And this gave the soldiers that were stationed there valuable time to ready their weapons and fight the Villistas off. And all told, when Columbus was pretty much burned to the ground, 18 Americans were killed, evenly split between soldiers and civilians, and 80 Villistas were killed.
Oh, they fucked that up.
But
yeah.
he burnt that down to the ground.
Not to the ground, but he did set it on fire.
And
sure.
that's his legacy. Like
it is in America, at least.
Yeah,
it is his legacy.
In America, his legacy is essentially a bunch of bandits tried to invade the U.S. and they burnt a town.
The only time America's ever been invaded on the ground was by Pancho Villa.
Yep.
In this attack. So Villa broke up his remaining quote-unquote army, and they disappeared into the hills. And the Americans were pissed about this whole thing. They were really mad. And so right away, they sent down someone who is definitely in our history that you may or may not remember, I don't know. General John J. Blackjack Pershing.
Oh, badass!
Yeah, who would see fame in World War One very quickly after this. They sent him down with 5,000 men, and for the first time in American history, automobiles and planes were used in American military operations to find and or kill Pancho Villa.
Wow.
They're like, we just gotta get these roads going.
They're not
then we can drive some cars on them.
At this point, World War I is raging, but America's not involved.
They're not
Am I correct?
yet involved. Yes,
Okay.
yes, indeed. And included, now this is kind of just a weird thing, included in this bunch of Americans that were coming down here was this ambitious 30-year-old lieutenant named George S. Patton.
Dun, dun, dun.
You don't know?
No.
You don't know him, Chris? He
Never
was
heard of him.
He was a storied World War II general.
Made a movie
there was
about
a movie
him.
about him.
Patton Oswalt?
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
he looks kind of like Patton Oswalt.
He was in Ratatouille.
Yeah. General Patton, the
looks
guy
nothing.
from Ratatouille.
Yeah.
Next. He was
Didn't
on,
they also do a split with the Executioners? No, General Patton and the Executioners. You haven't heard that album before?
I've not.
There's
Maybe
a little homework for you.
it's called A Way Homer because you listen to it on the way home. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That was a stupid joke. That was a dad joke
That's okay.
for all the dads out there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All those
we want a
dads.
lot of dads involved in our show.
Yeah.
Mainly dads.
Yeah.
I want dads and little kids listening to this.
I want dads that have like a man cave where they like do crafts, but like man crafts, like they make craft beer or like canoes.
Smoking a J, listening to some Molly Hatchet. And
Then we
lifting
definitely
weights.
can't talk shit
But
about
they keep
Joe
that
Rogan,
Molly Hatchet
'cause
low
they'll
so
love
they
it.
can also listen to our podcast.
By the way, I do know who George Patton is. I just won't put that.
I know you do. I know you do.
I know you know.
You were doing a bit,
I
Chris.
was doing that thing I do, where I pretend you don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
But it turns out, though, that the Mexican people were still pretty damn loyal to Pancho Villa, rather than the invading gringos.
Yeah, fuck those gringos.
So Pershing and his army went to and fro, chasing lead after lead that went absolutely nowhere. So they understandably got really frustrated, because every time they were like, hey, you see Pancho Villa around here? They're like, nah.
No.
Never heard of him.
So-
It's almost like that thing where
No.
like America invades another country, but they don't really understand the lay of the land, and they don't have the hearts and minds of any of the people who live there, and it's like really hard to do their job.
Yeah.
Good thing that never happened after the Mexican Revolution.
No, that never happened a single time.
It never did. This is it.
Nope, this is the only time it ever happened in American history.
Oh, except some other wars. Iraq?
Vietnam.
Vietnam? No, Vietnam went swimmingly, from what I understand.
Korea. So this punitive expedition, that's what they called it. They called it the punitive expedition.
Get him.
They're gonna punish him.
So
Punish the shit out of him.
So just before Wilson brought the U.S. into World War I, he recalled a very frustrated, jaded General Pershing because he found nothing. He did not find Pancho Villa, but there is probably an apocryphal story that Villa was one day sitting on a porch when U.S. Army troops passed him by, and they didn't even see him.
That's cool. I'm gonna say that's true.
I would
The
like
thing
to
is,
think
back
it's
in those days, like the best photos are all. It's not like they had a fucking smartphone where they go
Yeah,
like,
I know,
wait
right?
a
Yeah.
minute.
They're like, we're looking for a Mexican fellow with a mustache.
He just tagged him.
That's what they got.
Yeah.
He's like, well, he has like a bandolier. Well,
I look around, they
like-
all have that.
And they're like, are any of you guys Pancho Villa?
I'm Pancho Villa.
yeah. Pancho Villa shaves his mustache, puts on a fake mustache, and says, No Pancho Villa here.
Oh, they're like, yeah, you're right. Pancho Villa has a real mustache.
Yeah.
And that is fake.
It's like, you're right.
Yes, it is a fake mustache.
So nevertheless, the Americans would no longer sell weapons or munitions to the Mexicans legally because of this, including Carranza. So in a way, Villa's plan worked. And he sat back and he laughed and he laughed. Because he could still run his normal black market operations across the border and steal pretty much anything else he needed.
Oh,
So-
cool.
Nice.
Yeah, his plan sort of worked.
And he could do it because there was no border wall.
Pretty much.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying I'm for it. I'm just saying that's why it happened.
If there was a border wall at the time, it would have made it more challenging for him. That's all I'm saying.
More
I'm not
challenging.
saying-
It wouldn't have stopped.
Yeah.
I'm actually on Pancho Villa's side here, so
Yeah.
I say no border wall because of Pancho Villa.
Yeah.
If he comes back to life and wants to steal ammunitions from across the border.
That would be a great movie idea. Pancho Villa leading an army of the dead.
Oh, hell
On
yeah.
Some sort of retribution
In Trump's
mission.
America.
Be fucking badass.
Bam, 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 bam.
Yeah, somebody make
Yeah.
that movie.
He's going to be played by Danny Trejo.
I would love that.
What if
I
we
was
call
gonna
it Night of the Living Revolucion?
I feel like Danny Trejo's a little long in the tooth, though. I mean,
Nah.
It's kind of been exactly as long in the tooth ever since he got in the mix.
he's been 70
also
years old since, like,
He was
The
70.
80s. He's Danny Trejo years old.
Yeah.
So Villa started slowly rebuilding his army, but it would never be quite like 1913 again, and it certainly would not be the Division del Norte. But things were patched up between him and Onelus because, you know, after Onelus, after Villa stopped listening to Onelus, like, Onelus left. But Onelus came back. Onelus went to America for a while and, like, tried to make it, but he was, like, doing manual labor, and he
Yeah.
was like, ugh. Like, this is a brilliant military mind doing
I just,
manual
like, he's like,
labor.
I dig ditches and I play chess, and I'm getting really bored with playing chess and winning all the time.
They
yeah.
found him chopping wood.
pretty much.
We
And
need
yeah,
you to come back.
Yeah, and he,
like-
like, put his uniform back on and was like, it's all good.
I gave up on the revolution when the revolution gave up on me.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what happened. And Villa probably knew that he should have just listened to Onelus because he would not be in this situation if he
Had listened
did
to him in the
listen
first
him.
place.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how about you don't charge at machine
Yeah,
guns?
yeah, exactly.
He's
Go
like,
to the left,
"Fuck
go
you,
to the
sit
right."
and spin.
That's my brilliant strategy. How about you sit and spin, asshole?
So yeah, they both decided that, they're gonna have another go. They're gonna get the band back together, and they're gonna have another go at Carranza.
It's not going to be about the money this time. It's going to be about the music.
Yeah. That's when they
so-
released Hell Freeze is over.
Right. So when Onelus was back on the team, they saw some major victories here and there. But you see, Onelus wasn't just a gifted military mind. He also had the political wherewithal that Villa certainly did not have. He told Villa that he's gotta knock that shit off, that whole kill all gringo shit, if they wanted a new government after Carranza to be successful, just so they could be on good terms with the Americans.
They're like,
Wait, is gringos foreigners or white people?
I think just white people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just white people.
they're just the worst kind of foreigner.
The only
Yeah.
ones that they come into contact with.
Like
on
the
a regular
band
basis.
Foreigner.
Yeah.
Bunch of gringos.
They also knew that if they provoked America too much, a highly trained and seasoned, highly equipped American army would mobilize on Mexico as soon as they got back from World War I, which they stood no chance against. Especially just getting out of World War I, they knew what they were going to do. They had the money, they had the weaponry. There's just no way they could stand any sort of chance against the Americans. So they didn't want to provoke what they called the sleeping giant to the north.
Yeah. The Americans just got a taste for human blood.
And it was
And
all
they
downhill
never
from
got
there.
over it.
Nope.
Yeah.
To this day.
But there's something that they didn't really see coming, which was the Zimmerman telegram, which is very important, and I'm going to get to here in a second, which would provoke the Americans, absolutely. But before the Zimmerman telegram, and even before the Americans would even join World War I, Villa and Onelus were chased by the Mexican Federal Army at every turn. And, they were always worrying that the Americans would come back down here and start looking for them, and then they'd have, like, two different kinds of enemies. Onelus could not convince Villa that there needed to be, like, a peace, that we needed to, like, lay down the guns and be like, look, we got to figure something out here because this has gone on for way too long and we're just trading bad guys for bad guys and somebody has to stand up and be the good guy. And Onelus wanted to be that guy. And he wanted Mexico to heal. So because of their differences, the old friends Felipe Onelus and Pancho Villa would once again part ways, and this time for good. And neither of each other would see each other again.
So they're not going to record a new album.
No.
Fuck.
Unfortunately.
He's like, I'm going to miss your brilliant military tactics and not listening to them. I'm going to miss your bullheaded Mad Dog stylings.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it went. Yeah, I mean, more or less. That's pretty much exactly how it went. So the Zimmerman telegram. So here's what happened. It was a secret message from the Germans to Carranza offering an alliance.
Oh.
This is juicy.
It's juicy. So the plan was they fight America. America does not enter World War I in Europe. In exchange, they will get modern German weaponry, money, and if all went to plan, Germany was going to, quote, hand over the land that America had taken from them during the Mexican-American War.
And the only thing the Mexicans have to give them is all of their oil.
Pretty much. But that makes no sense whatsoever. Because what are you gonna do? Are you gonna go back to Texas and occupy it?
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Just like
Good luck with that.
empty promises.
There's no way that's going to happen. Sorry.
But all that barbecue they'd get out of the deal if they won.
Yeah, that's a good point.
However, this telegram was intercepted by the British, who really wanted the United States to join the war. And it was promptly delivered to the Americans, being like, see? Huh? You gotta get involved, right, guys? And Carranza even considered it. So, we haven't talked about Zapata yet, so we gotta talk about Zapata.
Where has he been
What's
this
he
whole time?
doing this whole time?
I've been dying to talk to you about Zapata all day.
I know, Chris. I know.
He had the best mustache.
Yeah, he did. Truly.
He called it the Zapper.
Nice. So meanwhile, down in Morelos, Zapata was doing his thing, stubbornly he continued his uncompromising fight. And the new general that Carranza sent to deal with the Zapatistas was General Pablo Gonzalez Garza. Pablo Gonzalez is what most people call him in history. But so far, no one, not a single one, was able to even come close to dislodging Zapata's guerrilla army from Morelos.
Oh, they're shooting from trees and hills and shit?
Yeah.
They were hiding.
They're everywhere and nowhere.
And
That's
they had a legit enclave too.
Although Carranza offered amnesty to any of the Zapatistas willing to lay down their guns, most of Zapata's forces stayed loyal. He was insanely well respected in Morelos. So they fought on. Certain people would defect over to the Carranza side because there was some crop failures, it was an economic depression, like I said, and the fact that this kind of warfare had drug on for years, unlike Villa, though, most of Zapata's supporters did stay loyal, which is kind of crazy.
Well, Zapata was kind of like if Che Guevara had a baby with Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, like if Che Guevara was actually a good dude,
yeah,
that would be Zapata. So because the revolution was pretty much failing everywhere else, it really added a lot of pressure to the Zapatistas. With his army being pushed back, Zapata was starting to become a little desperate. Because, you see, there was another guy fighting against Carranza. Oh, Felix Diaz. The nephew.
Felix Diaz back again. Da-na-na-na-na.
Yeah.
With that old Philly swing.
He still...
Yeah.
He still thought that he could lead his own little revolution and bring back the Porfiriato. Which, honestly...
Nobody wanted that.
Sorry, that's not gonna happen.
That's the last thing anyone wants.
Well, but considering that he did have an army and troops and guns, Zapata kind of wanted to play the enemy of my enemy is my friend game with Diaz. Kind of like what they did with Carranza. Like, look, I don't really like you,
This one turned out really well.
Yeah. I mean, it had in the past, right? With Carranza, He sent, like, emissaries over to Diaz, but nothing really came of it. And he also contacted the Americans. Zapata did independently, and nothing really came of that either, because Zapata was unaware of what Villa was doing in the north. There was no one coming to save him. So Zapata was out of ideas as to who would replace Carranza, and he certainly didn't want to do it himself. So General Gonzalez sent a subordinate, Colonel Jesus Guajardo, on a mission to commence additional offenses on the Zapatistas. Instead, however, Guajardo was found in a bar getting drunk as fuck.
Rock and roll.
Yeah.
Well,
I feel like Zach was about to say something. What was he about to say?
I mean, it honestly sounds like us.
Yeah.
Whenever we're going to record the podcast, we're just...
I think in a few hours that will be us.
I got
In a few
a
hours, that
very
will be
important mission for you. Got it. And then cut to us at a bar being like, we're on a mission.
we're working.
Yeah. I'm important.
Yeah. And yeah, General Gonzalez was pissed and was like, you goddamn drunkard, and, he was gonna, punish him and all this stuff. Well, Zapata found out about this, and he offered him a spot in his army, so he could not only avoid punishment, but also feed him, some details about what General Gonzalez was doing. However, this communication was intercepted. General Garza showed Guajardo this message and told him to play along. Like, hey, we're gonna do this, and you're gonna be my guy still, and you're gonna play along with Zapata. And they even, staged this, sham battle.
Oh, wild.
To be like, see? He had to, fight his way out, but, no one was killed, and the people that were killed were those Zapatistas that defected. So in a way, they kind of both got what they wanted in that moment, although Zapata was a little unaware of this at this point.
This is gonna be so brutal.
Dude, it gets bad. So Guajardo invited Zapata to a hacienda so he could formally defect to him. On April 10th, 1919, Zapata arrived with a small bodyguard, I know, dude, only intending to eat lunch and just kind of, take Guajardo and his men, and whatnot, and get out of there. But one of Guajardo's men ran up to the gate of the hacienda and yelled that there were federal soldiers on their way. And Zapata and a few men, rode out to go find them and see where they were, and, maybe they could see what they could do after that. But strangely enough, there weren't any federal soldiers out there. So they were like, alright, and they shrugged and they went back to the hacienda. And as Zapata was entering the hacienda, he noticed that all of the soldiers were standing at parade attention. As he went to dismount his horse, there was an order given, and the soldiers opened fire. And it riddled him with bullets.
He was like, oh, they're doing a salute. For me?
Pretty much, yeah.
And then they just all pointed their guns at him and killed him.
We brought this up in an early episode, but the scene in The Godfather when fucking James Caan gets lit up.
Yeah.
That happens a lot in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really just pumping round after round into everybody.
It is the Sonny at the toll booth scene.
Yeah.
It's also like in Dark Knight when they're doing the salute and then they turn and shoot.
Oh yeah.
Totally.
Oh yeah.
So the hero of the revolution, Emiliano Zapata Salazar, was tricked and murdered. He was
Gunned down in the streets of a hacienda.
Yeah, he was 39 years old.
39 years young.
It's the same age Madero was when he died.
Is it really?
39, yeah.
It was.
The 39 Club. A less
young.
popular 27 Club.
However, this whole move was really bad PR for Carranza. Because even if people wanted the revolution to go away, people loved Zapata. Yeah. People loved Zapata more than they did Villa.
And he was murdered by a trickster.
Yeah, it didn't sit well with most people.
It's a real Red Wedding, right, guys?
Yeah.
Remember that show?
So,
Seinfeld?
Yeah.
Yeah, Seinfeld with the rest.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Jerry Seinfeld.
What is the deal with no red wine?
I'm calling this the Red Wedding because it's ironic that there's no red wine at this wedding.
Yeah. Red Wedding.
Yeah.
So, after parting ways with Pancho Villa, Onelus would be captured and tried for treason. And there wasn't many, trials that happened during the revolution, but this was certainly one of them. And it was one of those, let's put him on trial. And,
Kangaroo court.
Yeah.
Make a show of it, yeah.
Yeah, make a show of it. Let's crucify him, And because he knew he had no chance at all making it out of this alive, Onelus made these impassioned political speeches for peace for Mexico and to end all hostility, still saying that, hey, look, this has gone on long enough. We need to figure out what we're gonna do. We need to stop fighting. We need to stop, like, changing sides and things like that. Like,
Be united Mexico.
yeah, exactly. On November 26, 1919, Felipe Anelas Ramirez was stood up against a wall and shot.
Best way to get executed.
Yeah. 5,000 mourners attended his funeral, which was a lot for somebody who was quote-unquote treasonous.
Yeah.
And honestly, there is an alternate universe where Anelas becomes president of Mexico, and that would have been a beautiful thing. It truly would have been. Like, he was down with the Plan of San Luis and down with these vast land reforms and things like that.
Do you think America would have backed him?
Well, we'll kind of get to what America decides to do after all this upheaval, but America didn't back anyone that was not Porfirio Diaz.
Yeah.
They wanted Porfirio Diaz.
I'm just saying America was...
They wanted a
Kind of
sure
the problem
thing that
here.
supported
Yeah.
their interests.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And the political situation in the country at that point in time was way too volatile for them to make any kind of informed decision.
Yeah, and they were tired about the revolution. They were just as tired of the revolution as anyone else, maybe even more tired. You know, all of their holdings were certainly not producing, right? Not producing any money, but there was no promise of them producing any money. So they would back anyone that would give them the opportunity to start making money again, like they were under the Porfiriato. And although he had made some nationalistic reforms, like we talked about earlier, that were intended on helping Mexico recover, they were kind of viewed as, like, isolationists, you know, with the blood of Zapata, and now Anelas on his hands, with all of his violent suppression of any dissidents, because he was a dictator after all. Carranza's obvious plans to put a new puppet in the presidency of 1920, because again, there was still this resurgence of no re-election, right, that was coming back. Carranza was in some hot water with everyone, and all of his friends started abandoning him. You know, because he's doing all of these Porfirio Diaz type moves, you know?
Yeah.
If you're just gonna let someone like Carranza run the government and be just like Porfirio Diaz, then what were they fighting for in the first place? And Obregón, he knew that there was no way Carranza was going anywhere, and he needed to be removed by force. But the weird thing is that Carranza was, like, universally disliked by a lot of people. Like, again, it was like this thing where he was a leader out of convenience to stop Huerta, and he just sort of rose to the top somehow.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, like, it's kind of, he seems very shady, he seems very kill happy, and he also doesn't really seem like he wants to do the job long term.
Well, he did want to do it long term. He wanted to be the new Porfirio Diaz.
But like being like, I'm in charge, and then actually having to be in charge, I think, are two different things.
It seems to me
absolutely.
you get, out of this whole thing so far, out of the 4 people who've been running Mexico since it started, you have people who, you have Diaz, you have Carranza, you have Huerta, all of them are fucking pieces of shit. And then you have Madero, who's just kind of inexperienced and... maybe has
made
a
a lot
in the
of
right
missteps.
place, and
wrong
but it's
place,
like,
wrong time, kind of a deal.
Like Madero is so far the best one, even though he's just kind of the most
wet behind the ears.
Yeah. It wasn't the right position
it's
for him.
Unfortunate.
Certainly.
Yeah.
It's like it just kept getting worse after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, no one had a hard time turning their backs on Carranza. Absolutely not. So in Sonora, Obregón would gather a giant force, and he was going to go down and he was going to dispose of Carranza.
You scoop him up?
In a really strange turn of events, because if you remember, Obregón fought Zapata and the Zapatistas. But there was a new guy. I think it's Geraldo. Sorry. Can you, Zach?
Gildardo.
Gildardo.
I'm missing...
Gildardo.
Oh, Gildardo.
Gildardo Magana.
Anyway,
we got there.
Come on, guys.
That's an unfortunate name, too, because Magana sounds a lot like Lagana, and the Lagana is the sleep shit that gets in your eyes.
Oh, no one likes that.
When your eyes get thirsty.
When it gets the really cool crusties.
Yeah, the eye crusties, the sleep. They call it sleep.
I wipe them out of my boy's eyes every day. I'm like, Fritz.
Like the Sandman. Yeah. People would say it's a Sandman because you got sand in your eyes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Sandman.
Yeah. Like that song by Metallica.
I know that's Mr. Crowley.
Magaña, so he was a Zapatista, and he was one of Zapata's, like, main dudes.
One of his main bros.
Yeah, and do you remember
He's my
that?
main dude.
Do you remember that guy
My man,
that was in jail with Pancho Villa? That was like, "Hey, dude, I'm gonna teach you all about like what being a Zapatista is all about." And Pancho Villa's like, "Fuck yeah, land reform, hell yeah!" Remember that guy that was in jail?
And he's like, first we're gonna have a fashion show, and he keeps on coming out in different outfits, and he's like, nope. And he comes out in the perfect Zapatista outfit, and he's like, nailed it, and they hug.
You know, what's funny is I re-listened to one of the episodes recently, and he makes that movie trope where they're like, no, that isn't right. You make the same joke when we're talking about, I think Pancho Villa breaking out of jail.
Yeah.
Like, you make the same joke in that case.
Do you?
He does.
That's hilarious.
Oh, with the fashion show?
Not quite the fashion show, but you're like, I think there is a bit of that where you...
Oh, I think there was some of that, now that I think about it.
It was specifically with Pancho Villa escaping from jail.
We like to recycle jokes here on History Boiz.
I
got like 5. I got 5.
I don't mind they recycled the joke. It's just funny that it had to do with Pancho Villa in jail both times.
Well, Magaña was that guy.
Yeah.
That was Magaña.
Okay, I do remember.
And he inherited the Zapatistas. It's kind of crazy that...
My boss died, and I got an army now.
Yeah, and cool. Magaña was
Right?
like, hey, me and Obregón, I mean, you're going to go after Carranza. Me and Obregón are going to be friends.
Yeah.
So they went after Carranza with Obregón, which is super crazy. And together they would corner Carranza, and they forced him to flee Mexico City. But, and I most people think that Carranza's plan was to go to Veracruz and get a boat and
sail away.
Try to sail away.
Yeah.
You know,
GTFO.
Wasn't it
Like
sail to
song.
Cuba?
yeah. Actually, he was trying to sail to Cuba, and then maybe from Cuba he would go to America or somewhere else. But to Cuba first, because I mean that's where
all the sandwiches are.
Well, that's where Madero was trying to go too.
They take ham, they take turkey, they do the smear of mustard, and then they put it with cheese and pickles, and they put it on a plancha, and then they press it down until it's toasty.
You're talking about a Cuban, like from Paseo?
Yeah.
I mean, a Cubano, you know.
Yeah, Paseo's still around.
Yeah.
That's for all these Seattle listeners out there.
Didn't we also recycle this joke?
Yeah, no.
Did we?
No, he talked about every time...
Every time Cuba's been brought up...
He makes the same Cuban sandwich joke?
He made the same Cuban... I let him do it. When...
Tyler knows nothing
I'm pretty
of Latin
sure
America.
he was talking about Madero going to Cuba. I think he made that exact
He
joke.
made the exact joke?
There's only a couple of reasons to go to Cuba.
The cigars and the sandwiches.
And to get your earlobes
And the
attacked
beautiful
by
ladies.
sonic weapons that are made by the Cuban government.
I don't know. I heard there's a beautiful bay over there that we can go visit.
I don't like to think of it as a recycled joke. I like to think of it as a callback.
It's a callback.
Alright.
If he mentions Olive Garden in this episode, then we're really
I
complete.
swear to fucking God, if you mention Olive Garden
When you're
in this
there, your
episode-
family.
So on May 21st, 1920, Venustiano Carranza de la Garza would never make it to prison or into exile. He was chased down on his train and shot. He was 60 years old. He had ruled Mexico with an iron fist for 4 years, and his reign of terror was over. And there wasn't many people to mourn him.
That sounds like the ending of a good movie.
Also,
It's not the end.
I know.
his last words
can
were,
see-
I've never seen a horse as fast as a train.
Actually, his last words were, "They already got me in the leg," or something like that. It was like, they already broke my leg.
They were
like,
no me gusta.
Jesus.
Probably. Well, I mean, if they chased
Was
him
that
down...
culturally insensitive? I apologize.
No, I mean, it was in Spanish.
Yeah. I'm making the effort.
Alvaro,
Sir, was he killed did somebody board the train and kill him?
they chased down the train and, like, riddled it with bullets.
Like, from the outside?
Yeah.
That whole maneuver.
I think he, like, tried to get off, or people tried to help him off, and he was just gunned down.
I just like the idea of somebody, like, on a horse, diddle-it, jumps up onto the train, walks up, and he says, like, I don't know, fucking Zapata sends his regards and puts a bullet in his head.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
In the movie I write, that's how it's happening.
Yeah, that'd be dope.
And it's gonna be Pancho Villa.
Said, Asta,
Fucking who cares?
That'd be dope,
Magaña, and then he shoots him in the head.
Dos for dos.
So Alvaro Obregón would go on to be I'm leaving a lot out here, but long story short, Obregón would be elected president of Mexico.
One-armed piece of shit.
He wasn't all bad.
Calling him a piece of shit for having
nice guy.
One-armed.
He wasn't total shit.
He had one arm.
He did have one arm.
That's the part that I meant.
He later went on to drum for Def Leppard.
He had a country to put back together. Like, it was all in shambles.
This would be a hard role at this point.
Well, yeah, because he basically...
And this is 19...
Got to be... 20. He basically got to be president to inherit all of the problems that Mexico had, and also to take a little bit of the blame.
And solve all those problems with one arm tied behind his back.
Yeah.
So, he has no arms?
But no, the one arm that he's missing is like...
Like, they tied the sleeve behind his back?
Well, I mean, like
they tied his like, dead preserved arm behind his back.
Yeah.
Which was not attached to him, it was just strapped to his back.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I got you. That happened.
He's like, flip my arm up so I can give him a thumbs up.
But his election would end hostilities in Mexico.
Finally.
Yeah. Obregón would establish labor unions, some land reforms, although much of what Zapata might recognize as real land reform wouldn't come until the late 1930s. But after much internal strife years later, Obregón would eventually be assassinated in 1928. There was like a dinner going on for like a re-election campaign and whatnot. Although no re-elections, like that whole thing happened. Yeah. There was a guy that was after Obregón, and Obregón was like, oh, no consecutive re-elections, and he wanted to run again. And people were like, hey, you guys can't just trade power all the time. And a guy snuck in because he said he wanted to draw a picture of Obregón, and they're like, yeah, go on in. So he got real close, and instead of drawing a picture, he pulled out a gun and shot him.
Oh, I want to draw a picture. In your blood.
Yeah.
In his defense, he did draw a picture of him on the wall in his blood.
The likeness.
So. He took his finger out and he finger painted. And he actually, Obregón looked very handsome in that rendering in his own blood that he made of him.
It was like a modern art. It wasn't like an actual representation.
It was like a Jackson Pollock.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a splat.
It was
blood.
a splat.
Guy was shot. It's actually really sad.
But before he died, I mean, we're not going to go that far. We're not going to go all the way to 1928 with this. So, Obregón as president, there was just one more problem he needed to deal with.
Oh, I bet I know who that is.
Pancho Villa.
That son of a bitch.
Once Obregón became president, Pancho Villa was like, you know what? Carranza's gone. Me and you, Obregón, we've had our differences in the past. But look, I will lay down my guns. Let me and my soldiers live out our lives peacefully, and we'll all be good. Now, I won't ever have any political ambitions. It'll be fine. And they agreed. Obregón gave him a hacienda where him and his soldiers could live. And
he gets his own hacienda.
He gets his own hacienda.
Talk about land reform.
And they didn't really like each other, but they kind of made amends, and they would send, like, communiques back and forth. But it always seemed a little phony.
Maybe a little tense.
From Obregón's side. However, this benevolent lifestyle of living on the hacienda and all that, it didn't last. Because on Friday, July 20th, which is coming up, the anniversary's coming up, 1923, while driving errands in his Dodge touring car that Obregón also gave him. Some say he passed by a school and school children yelled this, but most people say that at least somebody had yelled this. They yelled at him, "Viva Villa!" And that was the last thing he ever heard. Because these...
Live long...
Yeah. Yes, Viva. You got it. Yeah.
You live a long time, bud.
The gunmen on the rooftops of surrounding buildings popped up and opened fire on Pancho Villa. He was killed instantly. No one really knows who ordered the killing, although Obregón is a prime suspect for it. And there's actually a legend that Pancho Villa's last words were, "They can't end like this. Tell them I said something." But he was shot 9 times in the head a couple of times. He died instantly. There's no way he said that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no one knows who actually killed him. There was a guy who turned himself in, but he was exonerated pretty quickly.
He probably just wanted to be famous for being the man who killed Pancho Villa.
Yeah. Somebody put a hit out on him one way or another. So Francisco Villa, Pancho Villa, the Centaur of the North, La Cucaracha, was dead, and he was 45 years old. He
Had a bad run.
He had been a bandito, a revolutionary, celebrated general, a hacendado, and rumored to have been married 75 times.
And a movie star.
But now he was a legend.
75 times, though?
That's what they say.
There'd have to be some overlap.
Sounds like his dick didn't work. That's why he was...
Either that or his dick works super good.
Maybe. I don't know.
Probably more like
I mean, shut off.
He was one professor away from being the entire cast of Gilligan's Island.
What? That's for all the boomers out there. That joke.
It's because
Pancho Villa and the Skipper too. I mean, okay, so maybe the only thing that he was from the list of characters is a movie star.
Oh,
yeah,
that's what you're. Because there's a movie star in that show.
Damn it!
Yeah, and he was.
There's a movie star in the show Gilligan's Island.
Yes.
And so was Pancho Villa, and that's the connection.
I mean, in
that's
a
the
lot of
connection
ways,
he made, yes.
He was also a professor.
I like how he comes out with like the last part of it, where he's like, and then the professor too, right, guys? And we're like, what? He's
guess.
Like, he was a movie star. He was a movie star on the show Gilligan's
I'm
Island.
I'm having trouble.
We're like, oh yeah, okay, I gotcha.
However, I will say Gilligan's Island would have been an objectively better show if there was at least one revolutionary on it.
Yeah, if like a Pancho Villa style character was in that show.
Get rid of Mr. and Mrs. Howell, put a revolutionary. The show's instantly better.
That actually would be pretty
It's the only
cool.
difference between Gilligan's Island and Lost.
Does Lost have a revolution?
Something like that, I don't know.
I didn't watch Lost.
I'm just naming shows where people are on a desert island.
Yeah, I've seen more episodes.
What does this have to do with Mexico?
Okay, anyway.
Mexico is not a desert island.
I wish we could describe what the look Jerry was giving Tyler right there.
You can imagine it.
It was
It's
a poison.
not good.
It was a poisonous look.
Yeah.
Tyler will die of cancer because of that look.
Now, this was not the end of the revolution, because it never truly ended. But that is why, to this day, it is a point of Mexican pride to say, Viva la revolucion, Viva Mexico.
Hell yeah.
That is the end of our series on the Mexican Revolution.
Yeah.
Yay!
We did it.
So real quick, if I could just say, like, as kind of a wrap-up, I think the reason why I kind of wanted to do this episode, like, kind of some joking aside here, I feel that U.S.-Mexico relations in modern times started here. The true overt racism of Mexicans crossing the border and the Americans' disdain for that started with Woodrow Wilson, who was an absolute racist. The fact that Americans wanted nothing to do with Mexico unless they had a buck to make started during this era. Even in like some of the political cartoons of the time, they depict the Mexican revolutionaries, who are heroes, as these barefooted savages in a way. It's completely misunderstood, not even understood.
Right.
In America, like, our history books don't mention this, and they don't even mention Pershing and the punitive expedition because it was a complete failure.
Well, our history books like stories that make America look like the heroes. We so often we're not.
We, especially
This
in
story
this era.
specifically, we're like a lazy villain that's
A
off
lazy
to the
villain.
side.
We're
Yeah.
like the evil empire manipulating all these people into killing each other.
But the feeling towards Mexico, this feeling that that the revolution sort of birthed in America towards Mexico, never really stopped.
Right.
You know, it's always been this sort of, I don't know, there's a lot of problems going on down there. The racism still continues to this day.
Exactly.
You know.
Anyway.
Honestly, it's a great story. I've done a shit ton of research for this. I'm certainly not a historian. I know I've made mistakes, and I'm sure people are going to point out those mistakes to me.
All your complaints and quibbles, go immediately to @Christopher Whedon at Instagram.
Send them to Chris, not me.
Yeah, sure.
Send them right to Chris. It's all on him.
Thank you again, everyone, for listening to History Boys, and thank you for sticking with us.
Yeah.
And stay tuned. We got more stories coming.
We're going to have a bunch
This
more.
is the beginning.
This is just the beginning.
All right. Have a great night. Thank you.
Viva la revolucion!
Bye.